Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Wednesday. It's August 31st. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And you can see on the daily chart, we're still headed lower. Um, we're already into the next day, and we're trending lower again. This is today's. It started out kind of an inside day, but on the end, it closed way down. When you look at the chart, you can clearly see there was a trading range, and then we broke lower and we made a measured move down. You'll see that when we flip over, but we're still headed lower. Like I said all along, my prediction is we're going to make a new low here. I think the sell-off has commenced again, and we could see some bounces along the way, but I think we're headed lower long term. And we were definitely in oversold territory, or yeah, oversold territory down here, way away from the midline. Although we got a long way to go to get to this midline on the bigger blue channel, and also on the trend channel side of this trend channel. So obviously one side would be the trend line side, and the other would just be the the channel side. And they're usually a measured move. I'm guessing at this one at this point, based off of this low, but you can see that midline's working perfectly. So I think I'm pretty accurate with it. We may have to adjust it a little bit. We'll see. But as of now, we're still headed lower. So let's flip over to the 2000 tick intraday chart, and we'll kind of show you how it started. It's basically a range with a measured move down. Um, anyway, let's flip over. Okay, early on we were kind of chopping sideways, and you could see how it was getting weaker in here. I didn't originally draw this next channel, uh, but at some point it was obvious it was accurate, and so it looked like maybe we were going to go lower, but you can see it failed and broke out, and then it went lower again, failed, came back. By the end of the day, we made a perfect measured move down, bounced off that, and then we came back and tested that a few more times. It still held eventually, and now we've turned down, and this thing's just going, it's dropping rapidly. So of course this is overnight, there's not much volume, so it doesn't take a whole lot to move it during this time of day, but usually you don't get much movement between 5 and 5:30. So, but I think we got a long way to go to the downside. I think we were way overbought, so it could get ugly. It really could, and I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't. Um, we'll just have to see. But anyway, you see the day's chart. It was a range day with a measured move down. It just turns out what it turns out is we have a bigger range here, and this is what we thought was support was just a midline. So that's what we're looking at. We just traded from one end of it to the other. It's somewhat of a downtrend too, because we did really trend down most of the day from around 9 o'clock on. But you can see it's a very choppy. We're above the EMA, we're below it, we're above it, we're below it. We got a few decent trends in there, but for the most part, it's like a choppy range type day. But I'm going to put it back like we originally had it. I think I had it just a tad higher than that. But you can see it there. But let's zoom in, go through the trades, and there might be, I didn't even look because you really didn't need it. I don't think that this fits really well, but maybe there's another channel here. It looks like there is. I don't know that it helps you. You really need to be trading those shorter term ones, but if you saw it this way, it looks like there's a channel there to me. And maybe even it's more like so, because that fits too. And then this looks like an overshoot. So again, I still think you're better off trading the other shorter term stuff in there. So no matter how you saw it, doesn't mean, a lot of times people send me their chart and they'll say, well, what about this channel? You didn't have it on there. Is this wrong? No, if you saw it this way, no, it's not wrong. But you would still, in order to trade this, you need these other smaller, micro, shorter term channels. And so sometimes I don't put these bigger ones on there because they don't really help you. Uh, so anyway, doesn't mean you were wrong if you saw the bigger channel, but you still needed to see this shorter term stuff in here. So let's zoom on in here. 7 o'clock came right in here. This first bar is like closes just right at 7 o'clock, I think, but it's clearly 2 legs down, and you got the green or the cyan channel with a break and move to a new low, and then it bounces. It does kind of confirm that trend line. If you were sitting at your chair, I wouldn't have any problem taking that trade. It's just like I said, it's right at 7 o'clock, so you had to be ready to go at 7. Sometimes it's 7:15 before I get to trading. I usually try to be here and be ready to go by 7, but that doesn't always happen. So, but if you're there, take that trade. Then we run up, we come back, we get a first entry, we get a second entry here, and that's a really tempting trade. It would have worked if you took it, but look at that channel. Be careful going, especially with this down, this break. I'd let this one play out, and you see it does. It closes outside, makes a new low, and then it takes off again. So that's the place to enter. You might wait on a higher low or reversal just to be sure here that you're not too early. So I marked that one green. It's a little aggressive, but if you don't take that one, you don't get another chance at it. And then it runs up here, and then the bottom falls out of it all the way back down, and you don't really get a setup to go short here, at least not on my chart. If this was a nice bearish signal bar, I'd say probably go short right there. But it looks horrible on my chart. You just can't take it. And we've gotten too far away down here. There's no real setups till finally you get a break here, or close, or when I say a break, a convincing close outside the trend channel line. And look at that big bearish bar. I don't know that I'd go short right there at the low. I think what I'd let it do is break lower and drop a limit order, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 ticks back in, and see if you could get filled. You're expecting it to go on down and test the lows, and it could test these lows. So I think that trade is worthwhile, especially how bearish that is. But I'd just be a little hesitant to go short right at that very low there, because it could run down to that close from yesterday, which is what that red line is, and bounce on you. So you got to be careful with that. And then of course it does bounce down here where we had a previous bounce there, but this is kind of a new bounce, so you don't want to be trying to pick and choose on this one. Even though you got a break and a new low, it could still make another leg down. But notice what happens. It runs up, you get a first entry short, then it runs up strongly, and you get a second entry short, and it fails and it's right at that trend line, confirms it right at the EMA. If it breaks above that, it's probably going to have his shorts trapped. All these people are going to have to exit, and look at it go. Boom. You can see that was a great trap there just by the way that that happened. And it's right before a news item too. But this is not really a news item that's going to be that big a deal. So I like going long there. That big move to me is all based on short trap shorts and shorts that are trying to save a little bit of profit. So there it goes. And of course you're going to have the momentum from longs coming in there too and jumping in late, and that's probably what runs this last few bars. But that's a really strong move. I mean, just in a couple of minutes, that thing ran. If you entered right here, just within less than 2 minutes, you ran 15 points, $737. That's a nice move. If you can catch a move like that with a runner, and you probably would have got a runner on that if you trade that. Of course, that is a reversal. It's a more advanced trade, so it's not for new people. Don't try trading these. Yeah, they look great. They look wonderful, but I promise you they'll slow your training, and they'll keep you from being able to they'll slow your progress. So don't try learning them if you're new. Just pass them up. But when you're ready for those, the way you want to learn these is organically. And that means sticking to the basics and just watching, and eventually those, once you get really good at the basics, that will kind of come to you naturally and they'll make more sense. But really, don't try to trade them now. You're asking for trouble. So anyway, prices run on up. They're just chopping along. I don't think it's tempting to go short right here, and it would have worked, but I think you got to wait. It is a triple test. If you took it, I mean, that's the first close outside, really convincing. So it could run on up, and we're not quite to the high. So I think it's early. I think you need to wait. And if you just wait a few minutes, You could have looked at this as a reversal. It looks a little bit congested there, and notice how it breaks lower and comes back, and it could have ticked another tick higher, but that's a two-legged correction. In the end, that's a second entry, and when it held again on a lower high, I like going short there, and boom, again, the bottom falls out of it. And again, you probably would have had a runner and a nice move down. You get another second entry here, but unfortunately, the signal bar is not very good. So, one thing you might do here is notice this is a double top, so you could look at that as a first, second entry. It's a little convoluted. It's two legs up, and it is a second entry short. It's just not a very good signal bar, and it's already a little congested. You could get burned right there. So just wait, and if you wait a few minutes later, you get another second entry right here. Technically, I think that makes a tick lower. I'm not sure if that's an equal low, but that's still two legs back to the EMA with a nice signal bar with plenty of room to get out. With that being the first close outside, that really another strong move down. I'm going to take that trade. Doesn't turn out to be a really great trade, but it works, and that's all that matters. It actually comes back here again, breaks higher, but you can see that turns out it's starting to look kind of congested. By that point, it really is congested. You can kind of draw your little range. All congestion is just micro range, and so we call it congestion, but there it is. And so I don't think you want to take that trade by that point in time. So anyway, bounces here, you get another failed breakout. That one's tempting, but you got this little channel working up, and that's the first close. There's no close outside at all by that time. A few minutes later, you get this lower high. I think you're okay to go short right there. It's just a first entry, but that's probably going to trap some people. And it's a lower high. It's moved a little far to consider that a lower high, but when you know prices are trying to make a new low, I think the way the thing's moving here, I kind of like that. When you could argue for it to be green, because it's not an ideal lower high type trade, but I mean, you can tell that's all part of one move. It's still moving down, and you're expecting a new low, and you're expecting prices to probably test the lows again, which they do. And then of course you bounce here. It makes a slightly new. If you went long right there, I wouldn't. And you know you're being aggressive, I wouldn't fault you. I didn't mark it. It does run up. You get a close outside new high. Again, you're looking for prices to go higher, not lower here, really. And then when they just kind of hang around, then you got to wonder, this thing's probably going to break lower. Even if it's a failure, it's probably going to break lower. Of course, you get a second entry short right here, and that confirms the trend line. That's a really bearish bar. It breaks higher and turns down. You could trade that on the engulfing bar or go short one tick below it either way. And of course it fails, but don't be trying to go long down here below the support because it could act as resistance. And you can see prices are just unsure here. But what it is the range is still valid at this point, but this blue channel is kind of overpowering it, although it's running out of steam at the same time. And suddenly you get a break outside, move to a new low, and then it reverses. So we could go all the way back to the high here. So if you get a good setup, keep it in mind. And of course we run up and you get a first entry, and then you get a second entry. And it's a relatively small bar. It's only 8 ticks. It's not a great reversal. It doesn't quite get back to the EMA. I guess it does before it's over, before it goes higher there. But it's not a perfect reversal. You'd like to see it do that before it moves that far. But it is the first break of this channel. It's an excuse to go long there if you really think prices are going higher. So maybe you take that one. There's actually a second entry long right here, but you got to go long right into that resistance. It's too late now, and you can see it would have worked, but it doesn't go far before you get a reversal and a second entry in the other direction. And this is all still in play, so with enough room back to down here, and we may end up going lower again, which it does. So I like going short right there just to get a scalp out of it. And maybe it takes off, but it doesn't. It takes a few minutes, and unfortunately, you get this big move down. You might have looked at this as a triple test across here. Um, but we just bounced off the lows, and so that's a concern because it could break lower and turn up. And you do get a close outside there, but it just keeps going. There's a little breakout pullback short here, but you got to go low, short, right into the lows. It's very close to these lows where we bounced. Unfortunately, this is a nice move down that I just don't see any safe way to get in. Now, there is a second entry short right here. I didn't mark it. We're a little way, we've been away from the EMA. It's a little bit congested. If you took it, it's another one. I'd probably give you the green light on a green maybe, but it is aggressive, and there's a good chance you could get burned there. And then of course you get a break here, and you could look at that. You might want to say, hey, well, there's two chances to go higher, but that's not really a second entry because you're still in the count from way up here. So that's a first entry, second entry, third entry, fourth entry. So that's not really a failed second entry long. And so hopefully, I mean, if you took it, it works, but you can see it doesn't take long, and it doesn't make a new low here before it's reversing in the other direction. And it looks like we're going to reverse out of here. So I like this reversal. Technically, it's not a failed second entry short because you're moving up and you go first, and then you get a little tick lower there. By the count, it's not, but it comes back and bounces, and you're expecting a new high here. So I marked that one. If you probably could argue for it to be green. I like that trade. I felt really good about it in real time, but that's one that maybe I should have made it green. Let's just do that. I'd feel more comfortable because it's being really aggressive. And uh, what it is, you got a little tick or two. I think it's just a single tick. It may be two of them. And so that really feels like two legs up. And on a larger chart it would be, but that's going to be more advanced. So just ignore that. We'll make that one green because that's definitely more advanced. So anyway, it runs up, makes a new high, then we got one down. You get a close outside, new low, and then we're bouncing again. So prices are really just kind of chopping along, but it looks like we're trying to reverse here. And then finally, you do get a real nice reversal. Look how we shoot up, pull back, test it, try to go higher, pull back, test it. That's what a good reversal looks like. So I like going long right there. You got plenty of room back up to here in case it finds resistance, which notice it does at first, and that's your concern, and it could turn down. But it actually continues to go higher here. But you get your close outside, a couple legs up to a new high, and then it's turning down. And that one's tempting right there to go short because this is played out. And notice in the bigger picture, there's a couple of legs up there too with an extra push. So, but I still think a lower high and a reversal. And maybe you look at that as a reversal, but that's a little convoluted right there. So I think you're better off to wait. Notice you do get a second entry here, but again, the signal bar is not very good, so you can't go short right there. And it drops back down, comes back. Again, you get a second entry there, not a very good signal bar. Actually, horrible signal bar because this is makes it a lower high. This is technically your signal bar. You could use this one or this one. And since this one makes the higher low, that would set the trade, and that's just too bullish. Of course, it drops down. You get a lower high right here. Again, it's moved too far. You're going short into the lows of that move. But finally, you get a little. Notice you get a little second. It's another one of those hidden second entries. Again, if you don't understand that, just ignore it if you're new because it's more advanced. But notice what happens. You do have a new swing high here, and you try to go higher once, twice. You actually try to go higher 3 times, but it never breaks lower. So this is where the second entry long triggered here, and it fails when it breaks lower right there. So it's still a failure. So with it being a failed second entry long and a hidden second entry short, if you understand that, if that's not too advanced for you, that's especially with it confirming that trend line, go short right there. You got plenty of room to get out in case it bounces, which it does, and that's why we always want to have room, because you see as soon as it got to that low, it bounced. And so if you're too close to that low, sometimes you'll get stopped out on, and only to see it race in your direction a few minutes later. But we finally get a break of the yellow. We turn back down. The bottom just drops straight out of that. And then suddenly you get a second entry short real quickly. There's no trade there because that bar is too bullish. And then, but thank goodness you get a real quick high or low right there, or lower high, I should say. I'm sorry, not a high or low, a lower high. And that does qualify as a lower high, and I like going short right there. And you see that turns out to be a nice move. And then we finally bounce, and really what's going on here, I didn't draw it. I need to put this on here just for, there's a channel working down. You get a close outside. You get a two-legged correction, a move to a new low, and then we're going the other direction. And notice you're working up, you get a close outside, move to a new high, and then you're going down again. And that sets this blue channel up. Again, I don't see anything. There's no reason to go long here. That's a high or low. It is a little ways from the EMA, but we just came off the EMA, so you could get trapped there. Don't try to trade that. You get a break, move to a new high, and then this, notice we set the trend off that, and then we confirm it right here. And we tried to go higher once, twice, 3 times, so it's a failure. I like that one. And boom. It doesn't really take off quickly, but it starts the new trend. We come back here, unfortunately no setup there, and then boom, the bottom falls out of it. And I just don't see anything in here you can trade. And then we bounce, and then we're just kind of chopping along here. You don't really want to buy down here. The only sale I see is maybe here, but we came up way short down here. And notice we moved the measured move, and so that's the real concern here. When we bounced at that measured move, that's of the range. That's the measured move based on the width of the range. And when we bounced there and didn't get to the other side of the channel, that's concerning. That's a big clue that, hey, we may rally out of here. So just be real careful on any setups. Maybe you take that one. The problem is it made a new high. It's slightly higher than that one, I do believe. High there is 64.25, and right here it's, well, they're actually equal high, so it's double top. If you took it, it would have worked. And so maybe you take that trade. I thought it made a high or low high there, but it doesn't. But it fails real quickly and runs up and then turns back, and now you get a failed second entry short. Notice that new low, and that's clearly 2 legs up. That's going to trap some people, and that's going to run some stops on some shorts that were piling in down here. And notice it doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere, and they push it up one more time and they hit those stops, and boom. And as soon as they run all the stops, it falls, but then you get more buyers coming back in here because it bounces off that trend line. I don't see any reason to enter in here. There's no good setup, but it continues on up. And then we actually, looks like we get a little bit of an overshoot maybe. It's hard to say. I mean, it's so close it doesn't matter. But we end up getting a break, and the buying ran out, and the sellers, every time we get a good rally, the sellers just pile on and sell it off again. But if you wait a few minutes, you get this little congestion / range, and you get a little failed breakout and a chance to go short with plenty of room to get out. That's what it does. It runs to the other side, bounces, and has another failed breakout before it goes lower. And of course, you're into 230 by then, and you can see we had one more little rally, and boom, the sellers just pile in again. So every little rally through here, the sellers would just pile on. Little rally, pile on. Rally, they piled on. And so the sellers are just looking for rallies to sell. That'll be my guess. So be real careful. Notice there's only 1 or 2 possible buys. There's a couple of greens and 1 blue. There was 1 really good reversal there. Because once you've broken below here a few times, and this is not bouncing back up and at least going to the midline, then you got to worry that we're probably going lower. Those are clues that this thing's running. Every time it rallies, it loses. It can't go as high, and it goes a little bit lower every time it sells off. That shows you the momentum's gaining to the downside, and you're losing momentum to the upside. So those are clues. It doesn't mean that it still at some point suddenly doesn't reverse and go higher, but it just lets you know that there's a good chance we're going lower. And so if you've got a target down here, watch for that target and then watch what happens at that target. And you can see we reached that target to the tick and bounced and rallied really strongly. And then notice you got your break here, and it ran and made. It didn't quite make an UI, couldn't quite get it, and then they sold it off again. So anyway, interesting day. Uh, we're 25 minutes here, so we're headed towards 30 minutes. So I'm not gonna beat around the bush. I'm gonna wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday. That'll wrap up our week. And I do believe the following Monday is Labor Day, so the market's probably going to be closed. I haven't seen the holiday um, trading yet. I haven't seen the calendar for the holiday calendar for Labor Day, but I'm sure usually Labor Day is a holiday, so probably won't be any trading on Monday. So we'll get a long weekend. But I'll look at that and we'll talk about it tomorrow. But I'm going to wrap it up for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next.